you grew up in the public school system, chances are you probably heard people talking about teaching creation in school. A really important part of creationism is the word kind. And so today we're going to be exploring what creationists mean when they say the word kind as opposed to species. In order to understand that, first we have to understand what specifically we're talking about and what creationists believe before moving on to what they mean when they say kind, before finally looking at the impacts that it has for real people. First of all, what is a creationist? As you can see over here, there's a pretty big gap between people who are considered young earth creationists, flat earthers, and stuff like that, or people who just believe that evolution was God inspired. In short, today we're just going to be talking about young earth creationists, specifically the Answers in Genesis group. They are the largest Christian apologetics group that focuses solely on creation. They focus on handing out comics and having two museums, the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter, both of which tell people that everything that happened in the Bible is exactly true, such as the flood. They also think that the earth is only 6,000 to 10,000 years old. Essentially, they believe that everything on earth today is how God originally designed it. They say that microevolution happened and that there are variations in between species, but they don't actually believe in macro big evolution. Now, let's talk about what they mean when they say kind, because it's something that's a little bit confusing when they just say, well, there's a lot of different kinds of animals. They take the word kind from a passage in the first chapter of the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, where it says that God created kinds of animals. Directly from the Answers in Genesis website, quote, Genesis 1 repeats 10 times that God created creatures separately according to various kinds. Today's species show the potential variation that God designed within the original kinds, but this variety remains limited. Cats are still cats and dogs are still dogs. So as we can see within this definition, they use the words kind instead of species because species implies evolution. Basically, what they mean when they say kind is all of the types of animals. But they don't think that there are different species, because if there were different species, then they would have had to evolve from a common ancestor. In young earth creationism, and specifically in Answers in Genesis, they don't believe in common ancestors, because again, everything that is on earth now is exactly the way that God designed it to be. Additionally, when we're looking at this baraminology and all of the other people who claim to be scientists or creating new branches of scientists on Answers in Genesis' website, it's important to understand that no matter what ologies they have or what ologists they have, none of this is real science. And baraminology is something that they designed themselves. They say that it is a new type of taxonomy meant to classify things the way that God created it to be, with kinds instead of species. Because again, kind means that there was no common ancestor, something that is vital to understanding evolution. They want to classify modern creatures based on the original created kinds, and they say that this is a new field of biology, but again, don't let them deceive you. This is just something that they say in order to sound more scientific. As we can see from a couple of these cartoons, they believe that evolution, especially being taught in schools, is evil. In school, I learned that germs are evolving, so I'm sorry that I gave you a bad case of evolution. Evolution is going around in our schools, but there is a cure, which is teaching creationism in schools. And this cartoon that says, God created me, I'm Adam. I have absolutes from God, and God set all my rules, as opposed to us being apes in our past. We have relative morality and man set rules. These comics, again, straight from Answers in Genesis, show that they don't necessarily believe in evolution. They want to teach creation in schools, and they don't want actual science to be taught in schools. And this has big impacts. In short, bad science sucks. The push, even in recent years, for specifically Christian creationism to be taught in schools has been large. In fact, the flying spaghetti monster was created as opposed to creationism being taught in schools in Kansas. But there's an even scarier push for real Christians to pull their kids out of real schools and put them in homeschooling programs in order to indoctrinate them further. This leads to a lot of misinformation. NPR and CNN both reported that when people are misinformed about evolution, they are more likely to believe other conspiracy theories. This is where a lot of the opposition to critical race theory, vaccinations, and COVID misinformation has come from. They found that people who are evangelical Christians are way more likely to believe in this misinformation. And museums such as the Ark Encounter and the Creation Museum are allowed to be passed off as science museums. Baronomy and kinds are allowed to be used as scientific language. The reason why the impact of this is so great is because it leads to even greater misinformation and bad public school or homeschool systems. So when they say the word kind, just know that it doesn't have any actual scientific meaning and is typically being used to deceive you. Thank you.